The sun dipped low over the emerald canopy of the Amazon rainforest, casting shafts of golden light that pierced through the dense foliage like celestial beacons. Emma leaned over the wooden railing of their bungalow's balcony, her auburn hair catching the warm hues of the setting sun. She closed her eyes, letting the symphony of the jungle wash over her, the distant calls of howler monkeys, the rhythmic buzz of cicadas, the rustle of unseen creatures navigating the underbrush. After years of enduring the relentless cacophony of city life, the blaring horns, the suffocating crowds, the incessant glow of neon lights, this was a welcome reprieve. Behind her, Mark emerged from their room, his tense features softening as he absorbed the tranquil scene. "It's like another world out here," he murmured, slipping an arm around her waist. She smiled softly. Exactly what we needed. Yet beneath the veneer of serenity, both grappled with unspoken anxieties. Emma, ever the adventurous soul, felt suffocated by the monotony that had seeped into their lives. The city's grind had dulled her spirit, and a creeping fear of stagnation gnawed at her. She longed for rekindled passion, for experiences that would make her feel alive again. Mark, pragmatic and cautious, was haunted by different demons. Mounting stress at work and a faltering career had eroded his confidence. The unspoken distance growing between him and Emma only added to his unease. This retreat was a last-ditch effort to salvage not just their relationship, but parts of themselves they feared were lost. "Maybe here we can breathe again," he said, almost to himself. Emma glanced at him, noticing the shadows under his eyes, the tightness in his jaw. "We'll find what we're looking for," she assured him, though she wasn't entirely sure what that was. On their third day, restlessness tugged at Emma. The guided meditation sessions and structured activities felt restrictive, a sanitized version of the wild beauty surrounding them. "Let's explore beyond the trails," she suggested over breakfast, her eyes alight with excitement. Mark hesitated, his fork hovering midair. "The staff warned us to stick to the paths. It's easy to get lost out there." She reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. "Don't you want to see what's out there? Experience something real?" Her enthusiasm was infectious, and despite his reservations he found himself nodding. They set off after lunch, the dense jungle enveloping them as they ventured beyond the well-trodden paths. Towering trees twisted skyward, their branches entwined like the vaulted ceilings of a grand cathedral. Vibrant orchids clung to the bark, and the air was thick with the scent of earth and nectar. But as they delved deeper, the sounds of the retreat faded, replaced by an eerie stillness that made Mark's skin prickle. A distant, rhythmic thudding broke the silence, a sound out of place in the natural symphony. "Do you hear that?" Emma whispered. They followed the noise, curiosity overpowering caution. The trees parted to reveal a vast clearing scarred by devastation. Massive machines crawled over the land like metallic beasts, their jaws tearing into ancient trees, spewing sawdust and smoke into the air. The ground trembled with each felled giant, the echoes of their crashes a mournful dirge. Workers moved with swift precision, their faces obscured by masks and grime. The stark reality of the destruction stole their breath. "This is illegal," Mark said, his voice barely audible over the machinery's roar. Emma's eyes widened with a mix of horror and disbelief. "We have to tell someone." A sharp crack snapped them out of their trance, a branch breaking underfoot. Heads turned sharply in their direction. Eyes met, hard and unyielding. A shout rang out, and suddenly they were the prey in a deadly game. Panic surged as they plunged back into the jungle's depths. The once majestic trees now loomed like sinister sentinels, their dense canopy casting the forest floor into deep shadow. Vines seemed to snare their ankles, roots rising to trip them as they fled. The cacophony of the machines faded, replaced by the chilling sounds of pursuit, shouted orders, the snap of twigs under hurried footsteps, the occasional glint of a machete catching the scant light. Emma's breath came in ragged gasps, her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. "This way," Mark urged, pulling her toward a barely discernible path. The foliage closed around them, and the air grew thick with moisture and an earthy musk. A sudden downpour began, the rain turning the ground to slick mud, making every step treacherous. Emma slipped, her hand ripping from Mark's grasp as she tumbled down a shallow ravine. "Emma!" he yelled, scrambling after her. They huddled together under the shelter of a rocky overhang, the rain masking their whispered exchanges. "What do they want from us?" Emma's eyes were wide, tears mingling with the rain on her cheeks. Mark clenched his jaw. "We saw something we weren't supposed to. They're not going to let us just walk away." Thunder rumbled in the distance, and the light was fading fast. "We need to find a way back," he said resolutely. As they moved cautiously through the underbrush, the jungle itself seemed to conspire against them. Strange noises echoed, unfamiliar animal calls, or perhaps something else. Shadows shifted at the edges of their vision. Suddenly, a figure emerged ahead, silhouetted against a flash of lightning. Before they could react, more appeared, encircling them. The men from the clearing, their expressions unreadable beneath dark hoods. Trapped, Mark stepped protectively in front of Emma. "We don't want any trouble," he stammered. The leader tilted his head, a cold smile playing on his lips. "But trouble has found you," he replied in a thick accent. Just when all seemed lost, a deafening roar resounded, causing everyone to freeze. From the depths of the jungle, a massive jaguar leaped into the midst, eyes gleaming like molten gold. Chaos erupted as the men shouted and scattered, their bravado shattered by the primal threat. Seizing the opportunity, Mark grabbed Emma's hand, and they bolted into the darkness. Adrenaline surged, propelling them forward despite exhaustion. The jungle blurred around them until, miraculously, the familiar lights of the retreat center emerged through the downpour. Relief washed over them as they stumbled onto the main path. Bursting into the lobby, they drew startled looks from guests and staff alike. "We need help," Emma cried out. "There are men in the jungle. Illegal loggers, they tried to kill us." Silence fell, heavy and unnatural. The retreat manager stepped forward, his ever-present smile unchanged. "I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding," he said smoothly. Mark shook his head vehemently. "No, we saw them. They were destroying the forest. They chased us." The manager's eyes flickered with something cold and unrecognizable. "Guests are advised to stay within designated areas for their own safety," he replied, an edge creeping into his tone. Emma glanced around, noticing the staff subtly positioning themselves between them and the exits. "Why aren't you listening to us?" she demanded, a chill settling in her bones that had nothing to do with the rain. The manager sighed, a veneer of patience slipping. "I'm afraid you ventured where you shouldn't have, and now we must ensure the sanctity of our operation." Realization dawned with horrifying clarity. The retreat wasn't a sanctuary. It was a facade, a cover for the rampant destruction hidden just beyond its borders. The promises of peace and rejuvenation were nothing more than bait. "You can't do this," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Oh, but we can," the manager responded, a sinister smile spreading across his face. "And we will." At a nod, the staff closed in. Emma and Mark backed away until they were pressed against the cold glass of the windows, the rain pounding just beyond. Desperation clawed at them. "Please," Emma pleaded, "just let us go. We won't say anything." The manager shook his head sadly. "I'm afraid we can't take that chance." In a final act of defiance, Mark grabbed a decorative vase and swung it wildly, creating a momentary barrier. "Run!" he shouted. They darted toward a side door, adrenaline lending them speed. Bursting into the stormy night, they raced toward the only place left, the jungle. Behind them, shouts and footsteps pursued, but the darkness enveloped them like a shroud. They plunged deeper, the rain masking their trail. The jungle that had been the backdrop of their nightmare now offered a sliver of hope. As they pressed onward, an otherworldly glow began to emanate from the plants around them, bioluminescent flora casting an ethereal light. The path led them to a hidden lagoon, its waters shimmering under the tempestuous sky. Exhausted, they waded in, the cool water embracing them. From the shadows, figures emerged. Not the men from before, but members of an indigenous tribe, their faces painted, eyes wise and weary. Emma and Mark froze, unsure whether to fear or trust them. An elder stepped forward, his gaze piercing yet compassionate. "You have seen the betrayal of this land," he spoke in measured tones. "The forest has guided you to us." Relief and confusion washed over them. "Please, we need help," Emma implored. The elder nodded. "Come, you will be safe with us." As they followed the tribe deeper into the jungle, a profound gratitude filled them. They were enveloped by a community that revered the very land others sought to destroy. In the days that followed, Emma and Mark aided the tribe, learning of their struggles against the illegal loggers and the corrupt facade of the retreat. Together, they formulated a plan to expose the atrocities. With evidence gathered and the help of distant contacts, they brought the plight to international attention. The retreat was dismantled, the loggers prosecuted, and the land given protected status. Through their trials, Emma and Mark found not only a renewed purpose but also a rekindled connection with each other. The jungle, once a source of terror, had become a place of healing and rebirth. Standing beneath the canopy, hand in hand, they finally understood that serenity wasn't about escaping their fears, but facing them together.